Hey everyone, welcome back to the 3'n'D podcast. It's me, Gabe, and Rashab, and now we're here to talk about our Western Conference bracket predictions. In our first segment, we talked about the East. I think we were both in agreement that we both have the Bucks ending up moving on to the NBA Finals. So
Yes,
now,
sir.
without further ado, just to let you guys know, we're assuming that obviously each team's going to be healthy coming in and stuff like that. And yeah, I guess we can start. So the first matchup we have is the Phoenix Suns versus the LA Clippers. Who do you got?
Okay, this is going to be a rout. All right. The Suns win in four. The Clippers have no
Four.
chance. It's a sweep. Phoenix, once they Phoenix is so good. Like I really thought last year was the best year they were going to have, and somehow they came back even better. The Clippers just aren't healthy. Like I know we said we're going to assume everybody's healthy, but let's be real. Kawhi and Paul George are not coming back, so they have no chance. They don't even get a game.
Yeah. So
Suns in four.
okay, I have a Suns in six only because it's not like a real
What?
series. No, they're not going to take it seriously. They might drop a game or two here, but like you know what I mean. Like they'll get the job
Stop.
done.
Stop. Suns in four.
Okay,
Let's move
well there
on.
might not be Chris Paul for the first series if you think about it.
No, he's out 6 to 8 weeks. I think the season ended in 7 weeks when they
He's
when they made that
reevaluated.
announcement.
But either way, I'm saying it's not going to be a close six. It's just going to be they might drop a game or two here. Then it's like okay, guys, let's take this seriously, and then they're going to route them at the end.
Okay, I got Suns in four. Let's move on. Let's not talk about this boring series. Suns in four.
Yeah, and I guess just to mention, even if Kawhi and Paul George did come back, I don't even think they'd be in game shape to even beat the Suns, anyways.
Yeah, I think regardless, the Suns win. If Kawhi and PG came back, I don't think it's in four anymore. I think they might get a game or two,
Yeah.
but Suns in four, they're not coming back. We know that. Let's go.
Okay. Cool. That's quick and easy.
Yeah.
Next one, we have the two-seeded Golden State Warriors against the seven-seed Timberwolves. Who you got?
Okay, so I got the Warriors in five. I think the Timberwolves don't really have playoff experience. I think the first time, even when you're really talented, the first time when you get to the playoffs in terms of their big dogs like
Hmm.
Cat, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, who's quietly having a pretty good year. I just think the Warriors are too talented. They have playoff experience, championship experience, and I gave the Timberwolves a game because I think Cat and Edwards are pretty talented, especially Anthony Edwards. I love that kid. They get a game. That's it.
Yep.
But it's a pretty easy 5 games for Golden State, gentlemen sweep.
Okay. So I think the Warriors win in six. Only because I think the T Wolves might put up a little bit of a fight. They'll be like that scrappy young team, something to prove. And the Warriors, I mean,
You're
who
giving
knows if
these
Draymond's going to
garbage
be.
teams 2 games. I said you're giving these garbage teams, the Clippers, the Timberwolves, two
But it's not
games.
like they're going to be a real threat. They're going to take two games here or there. I mean, you said the T Wolves have no playoff experience. Let's not forget that one season they tied for the eighth seed and they played the Nuggets to see who gets in. That's as close as I guess Carl Anthony Towns has ever been to playoff experience.
That's a
But
reach. It's
yeah,
one
but
game.
no, I think they get two games. But like the series is never going to be in question. To be honest, it's just a
Yeah.
matter of I don't know if Draymond's going to be back or they might take it easy for a little bit. But they'll close these guys out, no problem.
Okay. So Warriors in five. You got Warriors in six. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
The next one, we have the three-seeded Memphis Grizzlies taking on the six-seeded Denver Nuggets. Who you got?
All right. So I was excited to discuss this one. I got the Grizzlies in six.
Okay.
So Memphis is, I think, one of four teams ranked in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive rating in the NBA.
Hmm.
They're fifth in margin of victory. They play really fast. They take care of the ball. They're a great offensive rebounding team, and they force their opponents to a lot of turnovers. Okay. Now you got Denver, who's not that great defensively. They don't have good backline defense with Jokic, who's not known to be a great defender. Denver plays really slow, and they're really bad at taking care of the ball. They're at, I think, 25th in the league in taking care of the ball, whereas Memphis is sixth in the league at forcing their opponents to turn over the ball. So if Memphis plays fast, Memphis can guard. We already know that they're a great defensive team. Like I said,
Hmm.
one of the four teams in the NBA in the top 10 in both offensive rating and defensive rating. So they can guard. They force their opponents to turn the ball over, and they get out and run. I think John Morant is the most exciting player in the NBA on a fast break, and he's pretty much unguardable once you get to that fast break. And Denver, I think, is one of the worst teams in the league at guarding your opponent's 2 point percentage. And John Morant is the highest field goal percentage in the paint for a guard and highest points per game in the paint for a point guard in a long time. I think this is just a terrible matchup for Denver. I think Memphis is faster, more talented, better athletes, and they got the shooting, they got the balance on the roster, they got the depth. Denver's playing with corpses outside of Jokic. They're not going to have Jamal Murray. They're not going to have Michael Porter Jr. I don't think those guys come back in time. And even if they do, they're not going to be ready for playoff basketball. So I just think it's too tall of a task for Jokic. He's great, so I give them 2 games. I think Jokic can win 2 games on his own. That's how talented and elite he is. But I just again, it's a terrible matchup for Denver. Memphis is the better team, and Memphis people are not taking Memphis seriously. They're the real deal. All the stats point to them being the real deal. They have their budding superstar in Ja, who's only going to get better, and they have a pretty complete roster, both
Mhm.
defensively, offensively, rebounding, taking care of the ball, shooting. They're pretty much well built to handle any team, really. But in this particular case, terrible matchup for Denver Grizzlies in 6.
Okay, interesting. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that's not taking the Memphis Grizzlies seriously.
Stop.
I
Oh my
think the
god. I
Denver
knew you were gonna
Nuggets.
go Denver. Just
I think they can beat them in 7, and this is why. I think experience matters. Like to get this started, I know the Grizzlies were in the playoffs. They made the play in last year and got routed, but this kind of feels like the Cavs of the West. But obviously, they're a much better. They have a better record and they're a much better team. But it wouldn't shock me if they were to choke in the playoffs because this is the first real year they actually have expectations. And you know what? The Nuggets have been, we could say, underachievers and chokers in several years in the past, but they've been there, been to the dance a lot. And I do think that they will get Jamal Murray back. And Michael Porter Jr., he might also be back too, but I think Jokic alone should be able to get this team past the first round. And
no
I
way.
don't really have many issues with
Stop.
John Morant. Beast of an athlete, great. But you know what? A lot of playoffs, it's different when you play a team, 7 times in a row in a series. And I don't know emotionally if John Morant is that good of a player where if things start, falling apart, how do they respond to that? I just think the Grizzlies are too young, too new, and I just don't see them making that much damage in the West this year.
I okay. Well, we'll have to watch and see. But
So I
I
think
I think
Jokic his star power alone gets him there over Ja.
they have Denver has nobody. Denver has no. They have Jokic and garbage on that roster. Like there's
But
literally nobody else on that roster. Even if Jamal
they're
Murray
NBA
and
players. Will Barton's not bad. He was a former Six Man of the Year candidate. Like they're not a bad roster, and they've
who's
been
gonna guard
together for
Ja?
a while.
Who's gonna guard Ja? Just think about that for 1 second. At
You
least
let him eat.
Memphis. But the way he like, fine. Who's gonna guard Desmond Bain? Who's gonna guard Dylan Brooks? Who's gonna guard Jaren Jackson Jr.? Like
Those
Denver.
2 of those 3 guys don't scare me.
It's not about scaring. All they need to do is go out and get 15 points each, and that is more than enough with the rest of the pieces on that roster for Memphis to win comfortably. Like Denver just doesn't have the pieces when they're not. Look, if
I'm assuming
Murray
health.
if Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Yeah, but even if they're healthy, like even if they're playing, they're not gonna be. You can't expect Jamal Murray to take a year off, come back to playoff basketball, and be exactly where he was before he left. Like there's gonna be a ramp up period. He's gonna have to get in basketball shape. He's gonna have to
So
get his rhythm
I
back.
think he'll be in shape because they
Okay, but he's
already
coming off a
came into
knee
the
injury.
season knowing he's not going to be around for the regular season. So they're already slowly going to be ramping up the process, or this would have been the expectation anyways.
I think if they're fully healthy, like Michael Porter Jr. at 100% of what he was, Jamal Murray at 100% of what he was, it's a different series. I think it's a lot closer outcome. It's a lot more of a toss up. I think the way it currently is and the way it's going to play out, even if they are back playing basketball, which they will not be themselves, like I'm talking about Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., Denver has no chance. This is going to be an easy 6 for the Grizzlies. Jokic is going to win a couple of close games for Denver only because he's so great. If it wasn't for Jokic, they have literally no chance. But I'm
Like
giving
I
Denver the
don't think
respect of
Denver
winning
can do anything with him.
with Jokic.
I don't think so. And he gets everybody on the team involved. Like that's how they're winning with garbage because he's able to get them in good situations to be able to do that.
Yeah, but they're not going to beat Memphis 4 times out of 7. Memphis is too good. Anyways, we would debate this all day. I got the
I'm
Grizzlies
just
6.
saying, don't be shocked, and I'll be there to say I
I'll be
told you so.
shocked.
I'll be
I'll be
there.
shocked. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna be shocked. Listen, if this series even goes to 7 games, I'll be shocked. Even if the Grizzlies win, I don't think Denver has any business in being in the series. But anyways, okay,
All right. I guess we can shift to the last series then.
yeah,
The number 4 seed Utah Jazz taking on the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks. Who you got?
okay. Dallas in 6. and only because I think Luca, since KP's been traded, has been on an absolute tear. I think he's averaging like 40 or something since KP's been traded. He's just playing more free. He looks like he's lost some weight, which I think is a given as the season goes on. The amount of basketball these guys play, the amount of the practicing, the focus, I guess, more on their conditioning. So naturally speaking, he should be losing weight since he came into the season out of shape. And as he loses weight, that's just better for him to sort of dominate in the playoffs. He has a history of dominating in the playoffs. So I just think Luka's too much for Utah to handle. And listen, Utah doesn't scare me. I think Utah is like one of those fake regular season good teams. They're just there's tension there. I don't think Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert love each other. There's no love lost between the two. I don't think Utah's a good team. I think Luka's going to single-handedly win that series. He's going to go God mode and take over and win the series for Dallas.
Okay. I have the Jazz winning in 6. And I actually think this is going to be a big year for the Jazz, to be honest. I think the roster's ready, and it's about that time that they actually click in the playoffs. Because they've had Donovan Mitchell, who's also been a big shower in the postseason, playing up pretty god mode numbers as well. And I just think Utah has the experience now to really take it to the next level. And I just see that series as being more of a 5 versus 1.
It's funny that you say that. I think this is the year after the playoffs, Utah blows up their team. I think Utah realized they can't win with Gobert and Mitchell.
Well, they'll find out this year, I guess.
And I think Rudy Gobert is pretty overrated, and he gets kind of exposed in the playoffs every year. I just it's funny because yeah, he's a great rim defender, but if I'm Dallas, is it Jason Kidd? Yeah, Jason Kidd
Yep.
is coaching Dallas, right? If I'm Jason Kidd, I'm isolating. I'm trying to run a pick and roll to get Gobert to switch onto Luca and putting Gobert on that island and letting him guard Luca one on one. And that's the matchup I actually want to attack as a coach for Dallas, just because I don't think Rudy Gobert can guard in the playoffs when it's all about matchups and he's the guy you target.
I still don't think Luca can single handedly beat the Jazz. Utah's a tough place to go play as well. Like if Luca's out of shape, there's altitude there. Like he'll get gassed. And I think Donovan Mitchell's not a bad player. Bojan Bogdanovic is not a bad player. I think their roster is actually well set up, and they have a lot of great continuity there as well. I don't think Dallas should be that much of a problem in the first round. If anything, I think Dallas can really blow up what they're trying because now there's a lot of pressure on Luca to be, you've been out of the first round a couple times. If it doesn't happen this time, then they're sort of in the same boat, right? They got to really surround their star with better pieces, which right now he doesn't really have the best pieces.
That's a good point. I didn't consider the increased pressure on Luca, considering that he has been out of the first round the last few years, and he's kind of been playing with house money because nobody really expected them to win. But I don't know. Utah's a regular season team. I can't see them beating Luca in a playoff series. So my money's on Luca.
Okay, interesting. So now that shifts us to round 2. And if I got this right, you have Phoenix versus Dallas. So
Yeah,
make your
I got
pick.
Phoenix Dallas in that series, and I have Phoenix winning in 5.
Okay.
It's not going to be competitive. I think Phoenix again, much better team. They're top 5 in both offensive and defensive rating. I think they're the only team in the NBA that's top 5 in both. They play with good pace. Chris Paul is just a master, point guard. He controls the game,
Okay.
especially when it slows down in the playoffs. It'll be an interesting chess match between Luca and Chris Paul because they both kind of have that like game controlling style and they play at their own pace and they want to slow the game down to the pace of their liking. But outside of Luca, that Dallas roster just is not good enough to compete with Phoenix. I think Phoenix is a lot better rounded, more complete, and they got a guy in Mikal Bridges who they can throw at Luca, and then they got rim defending in DeAndre Ayton back there if Bridges gets beat. I just think Dallas has a really tough time generating enough offense to beat a team that's as sound defensively between Bridges, Jay Crowder throwing them at Luca, and then having a good backline of Ayton, McGee. They're just well built. They're equipped to stop offenses that are ISO centric, kind of like the Dallas offense. That's going to be very reliant on Luca.
Okay.
So it's not a competitive series, Phoenix in 5.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that Dallas would be a tough match, or they'd match up poorly against the Suns. But you might like this. I think that the Jazz actually beat the Suns in 7.
Stop.
No,
No
I think
way.
the Jazz match up well. I think they're a well equipped team. And honestly, I don't know if we can really rely on Chris Paul to be healthy. And the Jazz really, I think they're really under the radar. And I think this is like their year to show out. And I think Phoenix might have a little bit of overrating or a little bit of pressure as like the clear cut one seed now. Whereas last year they took a lot of teams by surprise. But I know the Jazz are definitely a team that's hungry. And I think they do match up well across the board against them.
Okay, so you got Utah upsetting
In
Phoenix.
seven, yeah. And like obviously, if it was like Dallas versus Phoenix, I'd obviously take Phoenix over that because I just don't think Dallas really has the roster to do much. But I think this is the year that Utah really makes a leap forward.
Okay. So in my bracket, I got Phoenix moving on to the Western Conference Finals, and then my second series in the second round is Golden State and Memphis, the 2 versus 3 seed.
Okay.
So in that series, I got the Grizzlies winning in 7. And I'm I'm all aboard the Grizzlies bandwagon here. Okay, so
Okay.
hear me out. I think Steph Curry's having a poor offensive year by his standards. I
Yep.
think that's flying under the radar. He's not shooting the ball particularly well. Maybe the All-Star game breaks him out of his funk where he had 16 threes, which is just crazy. But I think I think I said this on one of the episodes on the pod earlier. Memphis reminds me of a young Golden State. The
You
way that
did, yeah.
roster is built reminds me very much of a young Golden State, and I just think this is Memphis's year to like put it together, and then they're going to be perennial championship contenders as long as they're able to keep this roster intact financially and people are able and their players are able to stay healthy. I think Memphis is the better team. I think Ja has the chance to be electric. Draymond Green said it too on one of the podcasts that Ja's IQ is off the charts. He can control the game. So I think it'll be interesting to see a veteran team like the Golden State Warriors trying to control the game versus a young upstart Memphis team who I think is ready for the spotlight and this moment. I think it's a close series. I think there's going to be a couple games that are blowouts
Hmm.
as the teams get a feel for each other. Given the crazy talent in this series on both sides, I just think Memphis wins in a close 7. I don't know. I have a feeling this is a gut feeling. Me going out on a limb. I think Memphis is the better team. They play faster. They take better care of the ball. Memphis is very strong in terms of offensive rebounding. I think Steven Adams is the leading offensive rebounder in the league, and Golden State doesn't really have size. They very much rely on Draymond to play the 5 and get rebounds, and they're kind of struggling in that department. I think the key is if Memphis can control the glass on rebounding, and win the possession battle. They have more possessions. They have more field goals attempted. They take a lot of twos because Ja loves to play in the paint. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a good paint threat. If they can control that and they can force Golden State to play loose and then cough the ball up, turn it over, and Memphis gets out and runs, they are going to win the series. Memphis will win the series. So I got the Grizzlies in
Wow.
7.
Well, yeah, on the last part, I did agree that the Memphis Grizzlies are like a young Golden State, but I guess in a sense, like that young Golden State team that lost to the Spurs in 6 the year before they won the title. Like they're gonna lose to the veteran team, and I think the Warriors would beat the Grizzlies. In my bracket, I have the Warriors beating Denver in 5,
Okay.
only because like they're just gonna steamroll them. Like that's not a good matchup at all for the Nuggets, and they would have obviously used all their energy beating the Grizzlies. But no, I think the Warriors they I think they have another gear they can really kick into that they haven't yet, which they haven't had to. And just being the luxury of the 2 seed now, like I'm sure a lot of these teams don't make a big deal of having the 1 seed versus like being able to rest your guys. Like I feel like if Draymond was necessarily needed to make a real playoff run, I think his rehab would have kicked in sooner. He'd be urged earlier to start playing. But the Warriors right now are just on cruise control, sitting pretty. And by the time the playoffs come, like especially after that first series with the Timberwolves, like I think then they'll be like warmed up, ready to go, and I think they'll actually start really just steamrolling through Denver in that second round.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. I think based on your bracket, I would have the same prediction.
I guess the main difference really comes with the Memphis prediction. I just don't see them
And
getting out of the
Utah.
first round, and even if they got the Warriors in the second round, I don't see them taking it even to 7, maybe like 6. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Warriors just absolutely sunned them.
Okay. So I think me and you got very different Western Conference Finals brackets, right?
We do. I have the Jazz and the Warriors, and I believe you have the Suns and the Grizzlies.
That's right. So Let me start. I'll start. I'll talk
Sure.
about the Suns versus the Grizzlies. I think you think that I'm going to pick the Grizzlies, but I got Phoenix in 7. I think Jaw has a lot to learn from Chris Paul, just because I think his IQ. I think Jaw IQ wise is going to be Chris Paul light, like a poor man's Chris Paul, I guess. Considering
Okay.
Chris Paul's like elite in terms of IQ, controlling the game, etc. I think that's where Jaw wants to get to. He's not there yet, so this is where the Cinderella Memphis Grizzlies stories end,
Okay.
or the story ends here. So I think it's a close series. Memphis is a great team, and I think it's a great experience for Memphis to get this far and to handle the pressure of the Western Conference Finals, the media coverage. But Phoenix is hungry. They're they lost they got a taste of almost winning last year, where they were the Western Conference champions, went to the finals and then lost. They were up 2-0 in that finals, and they gave it away. So I think Phoenix is just going to be the hungrier team. They have something to prove. I think Chris Paul knows that he's in his twilight years. If not last year, this year might be his best chance at a championship. We don't know if
Yeah.
DeAndre Ayton's going to be back next year. I think they give it their all, and they push through, and they win in a 7-game series against Memphis to go to the finals.
So I think that's an interesting one because essentially you have a finals repeat then of the
Yeah,
Suns and the Bucks, right?
yeah, it's a rematch.
Normally we don't really see that unless it's super teams and superstar driven. So I don't know. I just feel like running it back is really difficult. And I mean, yeah, I guess if they played Memphis, I think they'd actually probably beat them. Yeah, I'm just not that big on the Suns. Like even Chris Paul being an elite point guard, elite IQ. Like prior to last year, this guy he was a choker in the playoffs most of his career. Like his Clippers years, showed out last year. But even with Houston, I know he was injured the year they actually had a real chance to beat the Warriors, but it just never really worked out for him. And whether it's bad luck or injury timing or just, him not being clutch, it's just historically not been that well for Chris Paul. And I feel like last year was his chance. And you know what? I think the Memphis Grizzlies, I would actually like them over the Suns, if I'm being honest with you.
You know what though? You know what? I think his injury, his hand injury right now that does not require surgery. I think that's a blessing in disguise. One, it gives the Phoenix guards, like their backup guards, a chance to run the team, get some experience running the team, playing with the first unit, mixing up the lineups a little bit, and sort of getting comfortable without Chris Paul. And then it gives Chris Paul. The second thing is it gives Chris Paul rest to be
Mhm.
ready for the playoffs, so that when the playoffs come, he's less likely to have these injury issues that he's had in the past, where it's been a hamstring or a broken hand or something of that nature that gets him out of the playoffs, a shoulder injury. I just think that it's going to work out for Phoenix. Chris Paul's going to be rested. The rest of that roster is pretty young. I don't know. I think they're hungry. I think it's going to be a good series, but Phoenix still pulls it out in 7.
Yeah, I think they're hungry as well, but I think there's just something about being the defending Western Conference champions. Like the teams are going to look at you and use you as like the measuring stick, and teams are just going to come at you harder. And you know what? Like they're a good team, and I'm sure they could make the Western Conference Finals, but I just don't see it. Like I think they're going to slip somewhere down the road, and like that's why I mentioned they'd lose to the Jazz in the second round.
Okay, so
Wouldn't
let's
surprise
go
me.
through yours.
Yeah, through
What's your
mine,
what's your Western Conference Finals?
I have the Jazz beating the Warriors. I'm heavy.
You have Utah going to the
I
finals?
do. This is
Stop.
no, I'm not kidding. This is like this first time back since obviously the Stockton Malone era. I think the Western Conference is pretty open in general, and I think the NBA actually has a lot of parity right now. So like I think we'll see new teams going to the finals in subsequent years all the time, unless there's like a glaring superstar best player in the NBA that can take that Herculean effort to pull you there. That's why I thought the Bucks would also be there. But I think this is the year the Jazz put it together and actually make the finals. Like I think they have the size, they have balanced scoring, they have great rosters coming off the bench as well, and I think they just have a balanced attack where they're essentially facing an older team like Golden State. Like they're not the same young team that just cruise through the playoffs every year. And yeah, I think the Jazz actually get it done this year. This is their year, and I believe it.
I I'm at a loss. You think Utah gets through a gauntlet of Dallas, Phoenix, and Golden State and makes the finals? You think Utah can actually win all three of those series?
Yeah, I do.
No chance. They have no chance.
Well, that's where I think they have the balanced roster. everyone just has to stay healthy, and it's just a matter of attrition, I guess.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, we'll
Like
have to
we'll
see
see.
it.
I think Donovan Mitchell's matured this year. With Rudy Gobert being the liability, you know what? I think coaching can really solve that. Like they'll have to find better ways to use him, but he's an elite defender. Yeah, I think
No,
this
no,
is the
no.
year that
He's an elite rim protector. He's not an elite one-on-one defender. Rudy Gobert is the guy you target when you have a elite wing scorer like Luca, or you have another elite like guard like Steph. Like if I'm Utah, if I'm Dallas or Golden State or even Phoenix with Devin Booker and Chris Paul, I'm targeting Rudy Gobert. That's the guy I want to go after because he cannot guard me 30 feet from the basket. Like he's a good rim protector. He's a great, like no, great rim protector, great help defender. But he's in the playoffs. He struggles historically because these teams seek out these mismatches, and he's just too slow-footed to guard these elite wings and guards. So
we'll see how it goes. But I
we'll
know
see.
he's seen the criticism. Everybody knows that, especially like Nick Wright roasting him all the time for being, the guy you want to pick on in the playoffs. But I don't know. I think maturity matters, game plan matters, and I don't think the Jazz are just going to fall for the same script every single time. Like they might have something different, but I think from an overall roster perspective, I think they're pretty well equipped to be able to beat, I guess, anyone that stands in front of them. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they could beat these teams.
Okay. So we did the Eastern Conference predictions in the last episode, and now we did the West. So we got a finals matchup in my
Hmm.
bracket of a rematch, a repeat of last year's
Yep.
finals, with Phoenix and Milwaukee, and I have it playing out no different than it did last year. I got the Bucks in six. Giannis repeats, cements his all-time top 10 status. The guy's just an animal. Second MVP, second Finals MVP. So it'll be a fun series. I think Phoenix is gonna be more prepared for what Milwaukee has to throw at them this
Hmm.
time, but it's not gonna matter. And I think Giannis is just there's not really anyone in the league that can keep up with
Yep.
Giannis. So I think that's a mismatch on every single series except maybe the Philly series where I think it's going to be a little bit closer. But in all the other series, Giannis is the clear cut head and shoulders best player in that series. So I just think he wills his way to a second championship here. He's going to be motivated, hungry. He knows his legacy is. He knows how good he can be. I think
Yep.
like that's in the back of his mind in terms of his rankings on the all time great lists and his accomplishments. And I think he pads his resume here and gets a second championship and a second Finals MVP. Bucks in six. That's my championship
In mine, I also have the Bucks in six. Now
against Utah.
against Utah. Yeah. Now,
Okay,
really, I don't think people are really taking him seriously, and they're taking him for granted. But he is on some sort of goat trajectory right now, especially if he keeps winning DPOYs, MVPs, and he's clearly the best player in the league. And even in a lot of the mainstream media, everyone's saying, like, I guess his major knock is fine, free throw percentage, and he can't shoot. But realistically, he still leads the NBA in scoring. Like he's getting to the basket at will on his terms, his way, and there's not a single player in the league that can do anything about it. And I think he's just
agreed.
so overwhelming of a matchup that, like we've seen when the Raptors beat them, you need a whole team effort to build a wall to even stop him. And I think the Bucks are well equipped to even counter that now. Like they've seen what the blueprint is to beat him, and there's no other one, that would even that I haven't seen that would even
There's
suggest
no other blueprint that's gonna work.
exactly.
Yeah,
Like the
I
Bucks have
agree.
the counter for it. They've set the roster up to be set up in the event that happens, and like they're pretty well rounded all across the board. And I think I think this is his time to shine. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks win multiple championships if they can keep this core together.
I agree with that. So we both got the Bucks winning the championship.
Yep, Bucks repeat.